Ahsoka died in Rebels. You know, I originally wasn't even thinking about the concept of watching anything Disney Star Wars after subjecting myself to the sequel trilogy, and Ahsoka wasn't an exception, which seems to be uncharacteristic of me because Ahsoka is one of my most favorite characters in recent media.
Son of a bitch!
Thank you all for watching? Nah, we're in too deep. I grew up with the Clone Wars and I thought that she introduced an interesting dynamic in Kenobi and Anakin's yin-yang relationship, in that she served as a bridge between the gap for both sets of moral standards, searching for ways she can apply them to her own world, creating a new way to fight for peace altogether. What first started out as a brash, overconfident, and stubborn youngling vigorously seeking to prove herself grew into a calmer, more disciplined Jedi Knight with no hesitations to help those who need it regardless of the politics driving the situation. Seeing her leave Anakin still makes me depressed, and seeing her return to Mandalore still gives me chills. And while stumbling to the finish line after tripping over its own lack of brevity, the final season gave her a great send-off. Yeah, I know she was in Rebels too, but I couldn't help but feel that it was merely a mind blower to get people to come back to the show. Because she's kinda just there, only serving as an indicator that the episode wasn't complete filler and that it was a continuation of the real story. I also didn't really agree with how she went out in her fight against Vader either, but I was okay with this because it meant that her character wasn't left up for grabs for Kathleen K. Kennedy to ruin.
Ahsoka!
And so here she is in all her live-action glory. In her first appearance in The Mandalorian, she didn't really do much. I was a little lukewarm towards her portrayal here, but then it took a massive nosedive when she upped and left Grogu to be untrained because she's seen what feel like his can do to fully trained Jedi Knights.
Hey, you guys remember Anakin? Remember Anakin?
This really upset me and I'd love to get into the why, but patience. I don't want to delve too much into it just yet, as it plays a much bigger part later on. She then appeared again with Luke in the Book of Boba Letdown, but I don't really remember why, and let's be honest, you don't either. And then she got her own show. When the first episode came out, the world rejoiced, saying things along the lines of, Star Wars is back, or this is real Star Wars, or Dave Filoni is a genius. Now, I know that Star Wars has one of the loudest amalgamations of shills, and I also know that the only reason Dave Filoni gets any praise is not because of his writing prowess or directing chops, it was solely because he worked on the Clone Wars. But you know what? I wanted to give this a go because the Star Wars community loves Ahsoka, so there's no way they'd make up lies if Dave had any ill will towards her character. Even the people around me that didn't bother with the likes of Middo Season 3 and Boba Letdown said that Star Wars is finally back, and if it was good, it would take the critique streak out of my long line of hater content. Maybe they're on the right track, and Disney Star Wars has finally found its footing.
What's the word, Com?
They're Jedi.
I'm calling their bluff. Signal them to come aboard. I want to meet these Jedi.
Who are they?
That's a good trick.
Wow. Wow. This album's bad. It's really bad.
Disney Star Wars hasn't found shit. Oh, Filoni, what a far, but fast, fall from slightly above average grace. Ahsoka is, to put it lightly, the biggest nothing I've ever watched. Almost none of the characters have any clear motivations or goals, the pacing gives constipation, there's no stakes, no emotional weight, and besides Baylan and Huyang, each and every single one of these characters lack a single shade of a personality and boast the IQ level of a butternut squash. No matter the perceived consequences of the actions of our protagonists, they never suffer them and even go so far as to say that they made the correct decision. The action scenes are all slow, poorly choreographed, egregiously contrived messes, and the writing, if you can even call it that, is so juvenile I half expected an end-of-day dance number at the end of every episode.
Relax.
Don't worry about me.
I'm not.
Good.
Should I be?
What?
Worried.
Nope.
You like this?
But during my 5.5-hour torture session, I started to sense a familiar feeling in the Force. A feeling I had once felt not too long ago. Among the many drawbacks of the series, there's one problem that bugs me more than the rest. One crucial mishap amidst all the haymakers of carelessness thrown across the series. Ahsoka was nowhere to be seen. The show is called Ahsoka, but I can't find her anywhere. Have you guys seen her? I've tried my best to search for her, but I'm starting to think I got scammed because even though the show promised Ahsoka, I mean her name's in the title, she was absent from all 8 episodes. There is this orange chick with white lightsabers that looks like she's supposed to be Ahsoka, but she's a horrible teacher, dumb as a doorknob, has no expressions or emotions, can't lightsaber fight to save her life, and plays second fiddle to the edgy rebel girl. That couldn't possibly be Ahsoka. Maybe they have to find a map to her in The Force Reawakens or something. I could go on and on and on about how awful this show is, but not even a video the length of my last review would do it justice. So what's on the agenda? Simple. We're going to go over Ahsoka's time in the show and find out just how much of a disconnect there is between the real Ahsoka and that. But before we get started, there are 2 small snags keeping me from getting the search warrant needed to conduct this investigation. Ahsoka's place in the Star Wars timeline and the Stoic argument. So let's address these first and get them out of the way before someone tries to gotcha me after every sentence. At the start of the show's run, there were many people questioning Ahsoka's reluctance to express emotion, or reluctance to display any variance in her general expression. Every line sounded the same, her face barely changed, and her demeanor stayed static even when face to face with imminent death. Yet of course, the fans always have the answer. She's older, wiser, and stoic. If you remember the Clone Wars, or even Rebels, Ahsoka was not a particularly stoic person. In all of the hardships that she endured, never once did she not express whatever she was feeling during that time. Even during the Siege of Mandalore arc, where she was shown to be colder and more serious than she used to be. But Dara, it's been 10 to 15 years since Rebels. Considering that there was such a big time span between then and her show, there could be crucial events that brought her to where she is now. That's a nice argument, Senator, but my main issues with that are, A, while she wasn't one-for-one cartoon Ahsoka in terms of demeanor, she's definitely shown to be a bit more lively in Mid-Do than she is in the present day.
Let's see what knowledge is lurking inside that little mind. I want to see if he'll listen to you.
That would be a first.
I like firsts. Good or bad, they're always memorable.
How did you get her to tell the truth?
Let's just say I didn't follow standard Jedi protocol.
And B, these so-called crucial events are never made clear, nor are they ever brought up via expository dialogue. There is one important thing we do know that happened since then, and that was her fight against Vader. You know, the one she died in. But it's been shown at the end of Rebels that she's made peace with Anakin's fate.
You don't understand what you're asking me to do.
Yes, I do. You can't save your master, and I can't save mine. I'm asking you to let go.
So there's no way that it traumatized her as much as her personality changed hinted at. As far as I know, Ahsoka should still be the same, or at least close. The funniest thing about this is that I genuinely don't have a problem with Ahsoka being stoic. In fact, I'm a big fan of stoic characters, and I'm a sucker for the stoic character breaking out of their shell trope. However, I do have a problem with stoicism being her one and only personality trait, and I have an even bigger problem with the fact that there's no build-up, nor are there any references to how she got that way in the first place. To go from someone with so much life and hope to nothing but dead fish eyes, hearing about the events leading up to this could have made for quite the harrowing tale considering how drastic this change is. Maybe then, training with Sabine could bring out the old Ahsoka we all know and love little by little over the series. But nope, no backstory, no development going forward, it just is and it stays that way for the rest of the series, which is a masterclass in how not to do the barest minimum in character writing. No one person is or ever will be characterized by only one personality trait. We all have strengths, weaknesses, beliefs, motivations, and goals. So even if Ahsoka was meant to be stoic, and it made canonical sense, that does not mean make her as dull and as lifeless as humanly possible, or dare I say it, completely aimless. Which brings me to my next segment. This show is not about Ahsoka. Despite her name literally being the title, she lacks presence, autonomy, and a sense of urgency to an extent that whenever she's on screen, she feels more like a side or background character in her own show, constantly being overshadowed by Sabine, her supposed apprentice that became a Force-using prodigy after only one lesson that had absolutely nothing to do with using the Force. The hand-waving part of it, that is. Now, where have we heard that one before? For the scenes that she's in, she either does nothing, i.e. standing there confessing her love to Hera while the item that could alter the fate of the galaxy is out there with Sabine, says nothing, or says something that means nothing while doing nothing.
You're certain they know where Sabine was taken?
I have no idea.
What?
No idea. We'll just see where it goes.
It could go anywhere.
I know. That's better than going nowhere.
What?
She sits back and lets everyone else direct the conversation, uttering a couple of sentences relating to the topic, while finding as many chances as she can to awkwardly cross her arms for every second she's on camera. Hold on now, what about part 5? That episode was mostly about her and her conflicts beteaching Sabine. Not only was that episode completely pointless because there was rarely ever a moment in the episodes prior that hinted at the conflict part 5 tried to depict, but the only reason why people loved it so much was because of Hayden Christensen and the Clone Wars, not because of the lesson Ahsoka had to learn. A lesson whose purpose of which still cannot be decided upon to this day. Most of her screen time in the world between worlds, was cut off because the writers were too busy trying to show us how attuned Jason was with the Force, and whenever she was on screen she was hopelessly outmatched by a beloved character and actor that brought, while brief, eye-bleach-inducing choreography. Even after that, she had her Spaceball moment undercut by Hera and her rebels rebelling against the rebellion, and for most of that sequence she hardly said a word.
We'll just see where it goes.
It could go anywhere.
I know. That's better than going nowhere.
You know what? Maybe that's for the best. Now let's look at part 6. While a lot of the beginning focuses on the villains, Sabine still gets her snarky jabs in and her Force moment. Then after the 20-minute mark, the episode does a pretty good job of keeping its focus on her, aside from a minute-long update on Thrawn and a 2-minute-long update on Baylan and Shin. Other than Ezra showing up for 3 minutes at the back end of the episode, the only characters that Sabine shares screen time with are a dog and the crab from Moana. And as if that wasn't already enough, the insult to injury is that Ahsoka's supposed apprentice doesn't listen to a damn word she says. Apparently, Ahsoka is written to be her master. I don't really know why, because Sabine was never shown to be one with the Force, and they only ever officially met right at the end of the Rebels series finale, but due to some event or incident it's not really explained, she gave up? And the worst part is that Sabine never needed her teaching in the first place. She got along just fine without her help for the majority of the season. Yeah, she lost her first lightsaber fight, Qui-Gon died in vain, but after that she hardly ever fails again. Her abilities almost surpass that of Ahsoka's, and every decision she makes is always the correct decision. Most of the time they let us know as quickly as possible, and for others it may look like she made a mistake initially, but in the end it all works out in her favor regardless of the moral implications. She was never the learner, she was always the master, and Ahsoka did nothing but chase her around like a puppy dog because the plot only progressed whenever Sabine went into action. For example, they never would have unlocked the map without Sabine, they never would have found the traitors at Corellia without Sabine, whose whereabouts came from a droid head that wouldn't have been extracted from had it not been for Sabine's comment on how many droids there were. In fact, there wouldn't have been a droid head to extract from if it weren't for her Spider-Man PS4 style takedown on one of the wet napkin droids. They never would have defeated Morgan's fleet if Sabine didn't use her ace shooting skills. What of her own volition did Ahsoka do during that time? She found a map, fought some droids, and showed the map off to Hera. Keep in mind Hera's the one who recommended that she asks for Sabine's help. Let's see. She talked about the scan to help solve the map. She fought some Inquisitors. I would say she aided in finding the traitors, but Hera was the one doing the interrogating. She gave Sabine a lightsaber lesson and talked about the Force? She flipped in space, blocking lasers? Sure, she's had some lightsaber fights, some terrible ones at that, but they didn't really change much in the grander scheme of things, at least not in the way that Sabine's actions have. It's being made plain and clear that Ahsoka is being used to boost up who is supposed to be replacing her. Wow, I can't believe that we've gotten to this point. They switched from ruining previously established male characters to ruining previously established female characters. They actually ran out of male Star Wars characters to ruin. Sorry girls, it was fun while it lasted. And for the record, Respawn did it first. If you didn't notice, there are a couple of examples shown throughout the series where the writers purposefully toned down Ahsoka's intelligence to upsell Sabine's usefulness in the show. Things that would seem like target practice to Ahsoka, or to any human being with minimal brain activity for that matter, would either completely slip her mind or would be pushed off for Sabine to take care of. Granted, there aren't too many of these moments because Ahsoka doesn't really do much, but they're worth mentioning anyway because if the real Ahsoka were present in these moments, she could have prevented a lot of the conflict that occurred throughout the show. And it doesn't take long to see these tactics get put into effect. It starts right when the Spaceball map to Grand Admiral Thrawn is introduced. It is said at the crawl that Morgan Elsbeth is the one who told her about the map in the first place. Here's where it gets tricky. Is she the one that told her about what she needed to do to solve the puzzle? Your guess is as good as mine because they never tell us. But say that is the case. Why didn't Ahsoka ask her how to solve the map before she went to go look for it? And if she wasn't willing to talk, just take her with you?
How did you get her to tell the truth?
Let's just say I didn't follow standard Jedi protocol.
An enemy that almost laid waste to the galaxy is now rumored to be alive, and the map is the only way he can be brought back. I'm sure that the rebels would let you take her to unlock the map, but that's under the impression that Morgan even told her about the puzzle in the first place. Let's backtrack a bit. Did Ahsoka know how to solve the puzzle? Did she do any research? Did she guess? If Ahsoka knew how to solve the puzzle herself, then I can't really see why she wouldn't have done the same for opening the map. She definitely knew how to solve the puzzle that releases the map, no doubt, but opening up the map itself? Nah, she's drawing a blank on that one. A big reason why this knocks Ahsoka down a peg is because it's one of the easiest puzzles to solve and it requires no force powers. All Sabine did was look at the floor of the temple the map was in and replicate the logo onto the Spaceball. So all this map would take is the Zelda temple power of correlation.
Thane picked up a lot of volcanic ash on his travels.
Well, if we cross the list of planets we know he visited, with the distance he traveled.
We may be able to calculate where else he went.
Rhodia, Mustafar, Naboo.
Wait, there were no children on Mustafar?
It's a mining world. Probably stopped there to refuel.
That explains the ash. But it was 6 systems out of his way. Maybe he met up with whoever he's working for. I sense something, Master, and I don't like it.
It's the dark side, Ahsoka. This is the right place.
I mean, it's a big ass whosoever holds this hammer logo smack in the middle of the temple, stretching out to the 3 statues you focus the light on. You don't need to be Indiana Jones to put 2 and 2 together. But don't you remember? Sabine brought out those books and pages about the temple.
3 figures, 3 faces.
Maybe that was the edge she had over Ahsoka. That's why Ahsoka needed her help. Okay, first off, the temple was created by the Night Sisters.
Where did you find this? In a world named Arcana. It was a stronghold for the witches of Dathomir, thousands of years ago.
And the Night Sisters have fallen out of history ever since Grievous launched the genocide of their clan, and they're only featured again seemingly for the last time in an episode of Rebels. For the majority of that episode, Sabine wasn't even conscious, and when she came to, she got caught up with the Darksaber before she could make a comment on being possessed. So Sabine having documents on anything related to the Night Sisters makes absolutely no sense. Honestly, the Night Sisters having any presence in this story at all makes no sense, but that's besides the point. Secondly, even if her having those documents made sense, what doesn't make sense is how she's the only one with access to this information. Grievous was a huge part of Dathomir's extinction. He was also a huge part of the Clone Wars. There's no way that not a single person documented this and logged it into a database for a droid to Google search. Especially considering that Maul, the ex-ruler of Mandalore, and Savage, a Sith Lord both Anakin and Obi-Wan fought, were born on that same planet. And if not all that I've just said, Ahsoka and Huyang could have used the power of correlation and common sense, and the map could have been opened as soon as Hera asked for it, nixing the prospect of the team ever needing Sabine's help, which means that the map never falls into the enemy's hands. GG well played, the show's over, time to cancel my subscription. Dara, this is cool and all, but even with the mountain of evidence, there still isn't enough to definitively say that Ahsoka and Huyang never needed Sabine's help. It's pretty much up to speculation on whether or not it really damages Ahsoka's intelligence. You're right. There's a lot supporting my claim, but it's not concrete. However, I don't think that makes my statements useless. If not a conviction, I'd say that this was a good way to bring to light the sneaky ways they try to dumb Ahsoka down, and they'll only become more obvious as this segment goes by, so no need to fear. We're just warming up here. In part 2, after Sabine tells Ahsoka about her assailants, Ahsoka returns to her home to find the missing droid. Why would it still be there instead of retreating back home to nullify any risk of having sensitive information extracted? I have no idea, but Ahsoka's theory was proven correct, and she successfully retrieves the droid's head. With all of Sabine's tech laying around, she should be able to have its memory banks hooked up and recovered in no time? Ahsoka, very quick question. You fixed up a lot of ships, fought and studied many a droid, and have prior knowledge that all droids hold memory banks that can be accessed so long as the droid remained somewhat intact.
We need to do more surveillance.
Those droids should have all the intel we need stored up in those tin cans of theirs, right?
They should.
Then I'll get us one.
Which is why you went for the head. So knowing all of this, can you please give me a good reason as to why you took it all the way back to Sabine just for her to do what you already know how to do? Especially when you said that there was no time to relocate when discussing the possibility of the droid head blowing an entire hospital's worth of people to bits if Sabine didn't cut the power in time? Oh, it's so Sabine can say her cringy line about how awesome she is and Huyang can endlessly praise her for her elementary level droid knowledge? Ah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, if this isn't textbook dumbing down, I would have no idea what is. Ahsoka has 5 whole seasons of droid knowledge and a specific occasion where the memory bank part of the knowledge proved useful. It was stated by Sabine that the droid head might explode and kill everyone in the building if she doesn't cut the power before it overloads. Ahsoka could have saved herself plenty of time and may have even caught the ship in Corellia if she had just extracted the memories at Sabine's house right after retrieving the head, with bonus points for Sabine's house being far away from society because it keeps the general public safe from the droid in case it self-destructs. Instead, Ahsoka's droid knowledge and morality took a lunch break so that Sabine can have another edge over her. But not only that, they also rub it in by having everyone else on screen stand in awe at the sheer brilliance of Sabine's godlike power.
I should be able to work with it.
Are you sure you're up to this?
Like me, this kind of droid is incredibly resilient.
Dude, you didn't tell me she was this cool. I told you she was cool, man.
That means they have several built-in backup systems as a result.
Its memory core stays partially active even after termination.
And if you get the power levels right, you can recover the droid's memory.
And find out where it came from. Very clever.
With Ahsoka leaving the room being looked at as a stubborn, crotchety old coot that doesn't take help from whippersnappers like Sabine.
Let's get going.
No, you need to recover.
Damn!
Yeah, you sure showed her. Finally, in part 4, Ahsoka is now a firm believer that the map should be destroyed, since the risk of Thrawn returning is greater than the desire to see Ezra again.
The enemy has the map and the means to get where they want to go. I fear we face a difficult choice.
Which is?
If we can't make the journey to find Ezra, then no one should.
It won't come to that.
It might have already.
He'd be stranded out there. Maybe this time for good.
Better that than allowing Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
She plants herself further in that belief by asking Sabine if she can trust her to destroy the map if she ever gets her hands on it, and for whatever reason, Ahsoka isn't able to destroy it herself.
Sabine, can I count on you?
You know you can.
With her mission now established, she happens upon the map once again, and the only thing standing between her and saving the galaxy from impending doom is Baylan. She fights him for a bit, gains the upper hand, and has a clear shot to the map. What the fuck are you grabbing it for?
That was unwise.
This guy fucks.
You have 2 devices perfectly capable of cutting the map with one ignited in your dominant hand, and your first impulse is to grab it? Why? Did you not previously talk to Sabine about the bigger picture and putting your feelings last?
Sometimes we have to do what's right, regardless of our personal feelings.
Did you not just break down to her that the hyperspace ring is essentially useless without the map? Did you not just make her your backup plan in case you weren't able to finish the job? Dice the map like an onion and get out of there! What are you grabbing it for? And what were you planning to do with it if your hand didn't burn? Were you having second thoughts? Well, obviously not, because a couple minutes later when Baylan is holding you at saber point, you're screaming bloody murder at Sabine to destroy the map.
Destroy it!
So I ask again, why in the hell were you grabbing the map if you had that whole discussion about what needed to be done for the good of mankind? I'll tell you why she grabbed it. It's so that the low point in Ahsoka and Sabine's relationship that the episode was aggressively hinting at for about 5 minutes gets its payoff. It's so that Sabine can be looked at as the noble hero that was always in the right in the final episode, and it's so that they can push to further convince us that the dilemma between Ezra and the fate of an entire galaxy is actually a compelling source for conflict and is in no way morally abhorrent. Nice. If you've seen the Clone Wars, Ahsoka has been taught much. the rewards of patience, the consequences of insecurity, the blinding nature of overconfidence, to name a few of course. But one of these lessons were self-taught. And honestly, it's not really a lesson, it's more like a way of living. Ahsoka is one of the first Jedi to be shown on screen who has learned of a way to balance both sides of the Force. With such an important character taking a life path separate from what we've seen over the course of the Core 6, it brings opportunities to have her train Sabine in a way of which we've never seen before. There's endless potential for what tests and exercises can be used to teach lessons and share newfound knowledge. Maybe there can be insight into how the dark side isn't all bad. Maybe Ahsoka can dive into the ways it can be channeled into bringing good to the common people without becoming engulfed by anger, hatred, or revenge. On the other side of the same coin, it can also be a good way to explain how users of the light side can fall victim to the slippery slope of moral superiority and perfectionism. But it can also be utilized to lead by example, as the light side holds many benevolent virtues. Ahsoka's Grey Jedi status is a chance to expand the world of the Jedi with a much more nuanced take on the Force and its relationship with morality. Maybe then we can finally see the world the way Ahsoka has seen it and find out how she can apply her views to Sabine's training. It's fun to dream. Even though she's had experience from helping Yoda teach younglings about patience, teaching students in Mandalore about uprooting corrupt governments, assisted in helping the rebels of Onderon create strategies to fight against the false king, and helped Yoda teach younglings again, younglings of which, with Ahsoka's help, succeeded in ridding their ship of pirates, and without her help saved her from said pirates, Ahsoka has been downgraded to become one of the most vague and hands-off teachers in the history of Star Wars. I swear I'm not joking. But before I break this down, I need to go back to something I touched on previously at the top of this video. The big reason as to why I wasn't a fan of her debut back in the mid-DeLorean. In the introduction, I said that her portrayal took a complete nosedive right when she abruptly quit on training Grogu. There are two key factors that aided in manifesting my discomfort with her choice here. Number 1, Ahsoka throwing up her arms because of Grogu's fear possibly becoming a caveat for his inevitable seduction to the dark side is one of the most closed-minded thoughts from such an open-minded character who's no stranger to having revelations on the blurred lines of good and evil. They barely went through a training exercise, she touched his hand, felt his fear, and then said, "Nope." Seen that happen before. Instead of trying to prevent the worst by leading him towards goodwill, let's leave him here and hope that a Sith doesn't get to him before his powers fade. Man, imagine someone who's been casted out by her fellow members despite all that they've been through and a lack of concrete evidence, doing the exact same thing to someone else. Couldn't possibly be Ahsoka. How dare you accuse her of such a thing? This then brings us back to her show, where she does the exact same thing to a Padawan not pushed upon her indirectly by a person who hired a bounty hunter, no, but a Padawan assigned on her own accord. Yeah. Only this time they don't ever tell us what happened. She gave up and that's that. Here's where the second factor comes into play. If you look back at every episode she's been in, both the Clone Wars and Rebels, all of her battles, all of her tests, all of her mistakes, have one thing in common. Or to put it clearly, one thing missing. A single example of Ahsoka ever giving up. You can try your best to find one, but the closest examples were either Ahsoka having doubts in her own abilities trying to prevent the worst, or letting go to worry about what's most important. Which is why her live-action version in Mid-Do left a sour taste in my mouth. And funnily enough, it's also the same reason why so many people hated Jake Skinwalker in The Last Jedi. Jedi don't give up.
He's not my Luke Skywalker. I said to Ryan, I said, Jedis don't give up. I mean, even if he had a problem, he would maybe take a year to try and regroup. But if he made a mistake, he would try and right that wrong.
It was virtually drilled into Ahsoka's head by her own master that no matter how dangerous, no matter how difficult, no matter how hopeless the situation is, as long as the tide is the slightest bit within your control, never give up. When Ahsoka was trapped by rubble and debris, seconds away from dying due to a lack of oxygen, moments after acknowledging that she might not survive, she didn't accept her fate. Her final option was to create a signal to notify Anakin of her whereabouts. There was a very small chance that it would work, but the weak signal saved her and Barris's life. Literally in the next episode when Barris was infected with Geonosian parasites, Barris begged for Ahsoka to kill her, both to end the pain and keep Kit Fisto and his crew safe. But Ahsoka thought otherwise, and it paid off yet again. Ahsoka even inspired others to free themselves from being cattle to be slaughtered, despite lacking strength or weapons, despite these people being left with pessimism and despair for so long, despite losing one of their own to the Hunters. Ahsoka helped them defy all odds and rallied together to defeat the opposition, making her way right back to her master with nothing but what she's been taught. Looking back at these scenarios, it makes present Ahsoka look pathetic in comparison. Her giving up on teaching both Grogu and Sabine is nothing short of hypocritical, and it's a direct contradiction to everything that she stands for. Unless there was a point of no return, unless her students were forever lost to the dark side, Ahsoka would do everything in her power to make sure that they became the Jedi they were both destined to be. Why? Because that's all Anakin wanted for Ahsoka, and that's all Ahsoka wanted for Anakin. Yet she doesn't want that for them because reasons. We've barely gotten started and Ahsoka's corpse is already being buried, but the funeral doesn't stop there. Let's push on. Ahsoka had quit, and Sabine has made it abundantly clear that she knows what's best, but they do eventually get back on track, and their training begins in part 3. Before they get started, Ahsoka, acknowledging that Sabine's technique needs work, lectures her on how to develop her Force sensitivity.
Learning to wield the Force takes a deeper commitment.
How?
Excellent question, Sabine. Very nice. Let's see what the Master answers with.
That's something you'll have to discover.
You've got to be kidding me.
A good question for another time, I suppose. She then blinds her with a helmet.
I can't see. How am I supposed to fight?
I want you to see with more than just your eyes.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
With the blast shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight?
Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
You just couldn't resist crawling back to A New Hope, could you, Disney? And looks to test her awareness. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really know how people train with weapons, but isn't the point to block the attacks before they hit you? They kind of start doing this later in the exercise, but what enemy is going to lay their weapon by your head when they have the jump? If someone is trying to kill you, they're not going to send you a reminder that they're going to kill you before attempting to kill you. Shit, there was an entire Tales of the Jedi episode based on that very notion. I'm not saying that Ahsoka should completely follow in Anakin's footsteps with her teaching style, but I find it hard to believe that she wouldn't have at least had her tests be inspired by Anakin, considering that she still listens and learns from his lightsaber classes to this day. That seemed to be what Kanan did when he trained Sabine. Not be inspired by Anakin, but try his best to get as close to a real lightsaber fight as possible. And it blew Ahsoka's exercise far and clear out of the water. Should this exercise have been the one and only exercise that gave Sabine the skills to beat Gar Saxon? Of course not. But in terms of this exercise in isolation, it's a goldmine. Sabine was given the chance to fail and learn. She was given the chance to vent out her frustrations and worries. Kanan didn't sugarcoat, and he gave actual solutions to her shortcomings and weaknesses that didn't constantly revolve around anger bad, ooh. And for the cherry on top, the voice actors wasted absolutely no effort in selling the emotional weight of this scene.
The blade feels lighter.
You're connecting with it. It's becoming a part of you. But you cannot rely solely on the blade. You must use all your skills together. Ready position. You're not committed to this. You should quit.
I don't quit. I never quit.
Really? That's not what it looks like. You ran from the Empire. You ran from your family.
Lies!
So what's the truth?
Everything I did was for family. For Mandalore! I built weapons. The Empire used them on Mandalore. On friends. On family. They controlled us through fear. Mandalore. Fear of weapons I helped create. I helped enslave my people.
Magnificent! Magnificent!
This is what Ahsoka's training should have revolved around. Cutthroat, hardcore exercises filled with nuggets of wisdom for Sabine to retain and use. Instead, we get this.
Anger and frustration are quick to give power.
Okay, we've heard this paraphrased by many Jedi in the past, but you could save this by giving her some pointers on how to control.
Let's go again.
Oh, so I guess that's it for now. Before the next lesson, there's going to be more by the end of this episode, right? Right?
Nah, man. Nah, man.
That one 3-minute scene was the only weapon-based training exercise Ahsoka ever gives throughout the entirety of this almost 6-hour series. God fucking damn it. And now we're left to believe that Sabine can block blaster shots like nobody's business and can go toe-to-toe with an enemy who's been in training much longer than she has, with no knowledge other than one good lesson from Kanan and one bogus stick fight from Ahsoka.
Bullshit.
Before the next lesson, Sabine and Ahsoka say this.
I can't use the Force. I don't feel it. Not like you do.
Force resides in all living things, even you.
Okay,
If that's true, then why doesn't everyone use it?
Talent is a factor, but training and focus are what truly defines someone's success.
Okay.
Not everyone can handle the type of discipline it takes to master the ways of the Force.
Okay.
Start small.
How?
That's something you'll have to discover.
These aren't lessons, these are observations. She's not teaching, she's commanding. Can you imagine trying to become a digital artist, and instead of the tutorials helping you learn how to use references and master different kinds of brushes and techniques, they just tell you, in order to become a good artist, you need to use references and master different kinds of brushes and techniques. But not everyone can do it.
Start small.
And that was it? You'd be lost. How does one even know where to start? How can I make good sketches and then convert that into line art? How do I make good use of clipping and layering? What about coloring and shading? And the best brushes for either situation? And how can I find the right color palette to do so? Anyone can tell anyone to do something, but dissecting how that something can be done and done effectively in a way that can be understood by even the most novice of students in that particular field is what separates the good from the greats.
For my ally is the Force. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you, between you, me, everywhere, even between the land and the ship.
You want the impossible.
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
Remember, quiet your mind and concentrate. The design will become clear. Good. Gently. Trust the Force.
I can't use the Force. I don't feel it. Not like you do.
Start small.
It's no wonder Sabine doesn't listen to her. If I was up against the Empire and my Jedi Master dialed down the complexity of learning how to use the Force to merely 2 words, I'd only trust my own judgment too. I mean, if not that, what else does she have? She's only been taught 1 lesson, and that same lesson didn't get her anywhere closer to becoming enough to defeat her enemy. But no need to worry though, it gets worse. Now, aside from the Force and teaching lessons, what is another defining characteristic that solidifies the Jedi title? Their greatest ally, a lightsaber. There's no softer way to put this. Ahsoka's lightsaber fights are painful to watch, and it's mostly due to Ahsoka willingly making decisions that both nerf herself and tip the scales in the enemy's favor tenfold. We have a lot to get into here, so let's take what we learned from Ahsoka, try our best to start small, and talk a bit about the lightsabers themselves. If you look closely, Ahsoka's lightsabers after the Clone Wars feature a curved hilt. Now, why is this important? Back in the prequels, the curved hilt was first introduced by Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones, and the idea was brought to George Lucas by Christopher Lee, as Lee was a world champion fencer back in the day, and was also a direct descendant to King Charlemagne, whose hilt was curved. Both elegant in its design and usage, the curved hilt allowed for immense precision and finesse, sacrificing power for accuracy. Dooku would make use of the angle by holding the hilt dead ahead, thumb down, resting it in the middle of his hand to help make thrusting and blade manipulation feel more natural and fluid, which is why it's not a secret that Dooku's favorite combat form resembled that of the art of fencing. To draw this closer to Ahsoka, Asajj Ventress incorporated Dooku's said combat form, Makashi, into her Jarkai form, which is basically just using 2 lightsabers at the same time. While unrefined due to a lack of experience and control over her emotions, you can see her use some of Dooku's techniques during her fights throughout the Clone Wars. So upon seeing Ahsoka's new hilts in Rebels, I was under the impression that she would have taken up a more disciplined approach to her combat form to represent how wise she's gotten. But she uses them in pretty much the same way she's been using them in the Clone Wars, although she reverse grips a little too much for my taste. Of course, I have no issue with this because her initial combat form is more her personality, but I can't say that it wasn't a bit of a spit in the face to everything that the curved hilt represented. It gave me the impression that it was only used to push a samurai influence, which could have been fine as Japanese culture helped bring the Jedi to life, but in doing so you undermine the technical meaning behind a well-known piece of Star Wars lore inspired by a living legend purely because you wanted something to look cool. That is why this is important. Throughout the duration of Ahsoka, Filoni does this repeatedly on a much larger scale, so much so that it caused for Ahsoka to lose a crucial fight that would have ended the story early had she done otherwise, with others further proving still that she has no sense of urgency. Allow me to demonstrate. Ahsoka is a dedicated practitioner of the lightsaber combat form 5, which is split down into 2 different variants, Shien and Gemso. Xian's greatest strength is blocking and deflecting blaster shots back at enemies. Keep in mind that deflecting blaster shots was the curved hilt's greatest weakness, while xxiv makes up for Xian's weaknesses by emphasizing on melee combat. You can see Ahsoka utilizing both of these variants, as Xian provided her with the reverse grip and aptitude for making enemy blasters a weapon of her own, and xxiv accounted for her inadequacies in one-on-one fights. Add that Jar Kai does wonders for wielding both variants, it goes without saying that Ahsoka is at her strongest when using two lightsabers. This becomes more true when you bring up her fight against Maul in the Siege of Mandalore, where after being disarmed, she instantly pulls back on the defensive while searching for the right time to retrieve her lost weapon. But Dara, what does this have to do with the show? Oh. In her fight against Helmet Guy, she seemed to forget that she had a second lightsaber, and it was only so that Filoni could do the badass anime / wait a few seconds to see who died thing. I'm sure that's why the character everyone thought was going to be a key reveal was instead a creation of the Night Sisters, so that he could imitate the explosion or fountain of blood that would come out afterwards. It just oozes Ryan's bombers. He's trying so hard to sell this that he even forces Ahsoka to wield it like a samurai sword, instead of the one-handed forward reverse grip switching she's used her entire life. Or to be petty, the Makashi way like the curved hilt entails. This would be a good time to mention the weirdo stances she'd take before a fight. Remember when battle stances used to be a way to launch an attack, prep yourself for being attacked, or a means to reset back into position for the next move, as opposed to being nothing but a stylistic choice because the creator thought it looked cool? Nah, me neither. But let's get into the real meat of why it bothers me most. Shin and Helmet Guy bump into Sabine and Ahsoka to stop them from getting to Baylan in the map, which is being used to calculate the coordinates to Thrawn, implying that they're on a countdown. So what does Ahsoka do? She stares, and stares, and stares. By the way, where's your other lightsaber at? Oh, just going in without evening the playing field. Yeah, sure, okay. The enemy is inching closer and closer to activating the hyperspace ring for every second that you're sitting here. Need I remind you that said hyperspace ring can travel to the one man you said might start up another war? You're on a timer. Bring out the other lightsaber, kill him, and get going. Hold on, it gets better. Once they have their little standoff in Ahsoka's Zantetsuken's Helmet Guy, to feed off of anime and samurai movies like I said before, she sits there waiting for him to explode. It actually borders on funny because when they cut to Sabine fighting for her life, she's still sitting there in the background waiting. With how long it takes for you to beat this guy well after you beat him, you could have ran over to Sabine and 2v1'd both Shin and Baylan. But nah, Star Wars has to be an anime now, because Filoni wanted it in, and that's all that matters. Oh my god guys, they're doing a standoff like in the samurai movies. It's so flippin' cool! Hey, Ahsoka. Yeah, sorry, I know you're locking lightsabers right now, but I just wanted to remind you that you have a weapon just like the one in your right hand that you could use to cut off his hands, so just take your left hand over to your waist and... Oh, okay. Hey, hi, me again. It seems you're in the exact same situation as before. In case you forgot, that second lightsaber is still there, ready to be of service for all your slashy needs. So we're just gonna kick him? Alright then. Oh, nice going, Master Jedi. Now you can't even use it. For fuck's sake. The two-handed lightsaber thing drives me up a wall, but Ahsoka's god-awful choreography throws me straight through it. There are many occasions where Ahsoka could have used her second lightsaber to end fights while locking her first with the enemies. Not only that, but she also slashes with both lightsabers an unhealthy amount of times during these fights. The point of Jar Kai is to overwhelm your opponents with endless alternating attacks. Alternating being the key word, as using one weapon after the other makes up for whatever end lag the slash from the previous weapon would have brought. Going back to Mandalore, Ahsoka would use double slashing sparingly, mostly if she thought she could overpower Maul, if Maul overpowered her, or if Maul would try to use the momentum from the top of his saber staff being blocked to go for her lower body. Aside from that, it's nothing but attack after attack after attack, making good use of her extra weapon whatever chance she got. But when we look at her show, hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him. Stop blocking and hitting with both sabers at the same time. If this guy didn't stop to block the air, you would have been dead.
Hey, are you okay?
I'm just so happy.
That time didn't even make sense. You have the Shoto in the reverse grip, but instead of reserving it for an attack after you block his swing, you waste the extra effort to raise your arm high enough to block what your first lightsaber was already blocking? Huh? You're not in optimal range anymore. Switch from the reverse grip so you can get back to alternating attacks. Stop putting yourself at a disadvantage just to look cool. Okay, you got him. His blade is on the right side end of both of your blades. Finish the job. Move your big lightsaber to the left and kill him. Move the big lightsaber to the left. Why did you push him? No. Come on. You had him right there. Why would you push him with your lightsabers and then push him even further out of your range? What could you possibly hope to gain from that? Great going, Master Jedi. They got away. Stop. Please, just stop. Hit him. Hit him.
What the hell is going on?
Why are you reverse gripping both lightsabers? You have no range. Just kill her already. I beg of you. End my suffering. Oh good, here comes the student to save her master's skin. For the 9 millionth time. Can you believe that she was the one who was supposed to train Sabine? Somehow this series was supposed to be a master and apprentice journey. Yet not once did Ahsoka show any mastery in anything that she's done in almost 6 hours of content. Look how they massacred my girl. And if the complete negligence of the Gemso side of Ahsoka's combat wasn't enough pain for you, don't worry, her She-End side was just as overlooked. I did mention before that the curved hilt made deflecting blasters more difficult as it was perfected for dueling and dueling only. Maybe it was unintentional, but at least they got that part right. Oh man. Okay, we already went over Ahsoka's usefulness, her intelligence, and her ability to be a teacher. She does nothing useful, is an idiot, and can't teach worth a damn. But there's one last thing that we haven't gotten to yet, and it's the one thing that I've been itching to talk about the most, which is why I saved it for last. I've already talked about it little by little during this video, and I think it's high time that we finally discuss it in depth. Out of all of the lessons that Ahsoka has been taught, there is one with a message that stands out from the rest, and it's one that she's retained well into her own present series. Purpose should always come before feelings. A classic tale on the burden of heroism. The needs of the many will always outweigh your own, even if you deserve to fulfill them. Because if you don't do the right thing, who else will? This was a pill Ahsoka found hardest to swallow, and her time in the Clone Wars didn't hesitate to keep teaching her that message.
Anakin doesn't have much time. We have to find help tonight.
Okay, you and Bly go south. Rex and I will stay here with Anakin.
No, Ahsoka. In order to get help quickly, we must work together.
I can't leave him. I know if I was hurt, he'd never leave me behind.
I know this is hard, Ahsoka, but Anakin has to stay behind, and we have to go now. We must do all we can to get off this planet. As a Jedi, it is your duty to do what is best for the group.
I thought I could knock out those battleships, so when Master Obi-Wan arrived, he could get through.
I know you meant well, Snips, but there's a bigger picture that you're not aware of. First rule of war, listen and obey your superiors.
But sometimes you get carried away.
All that means is that I understand what you're going through.
But I failed. I lost so many of my pilots.
Take heart, little one. That's the reality of command.
The bugs took the bombs.
What are we gonna do now?
I don't know what to do.
Well, this tank could destroy the power generator, and probably us along with it.
I guess that's our only choice.
Master, can you hear me?
So, set off the bombs! We're trapped!
I'm sorry, Master.
We can't make it out.
Can't make it out. Ahsoka, wait!
Fire.
Soon enough, Ahsoka embraced that message. She finally saw the bigger picture Anakin was talking about. It's what saved her and Rex in the Clone Wars series finale, and it's what helped Ezra let go of the past. This lesson is arguably the biggest part of what shaped her into the Jedi she is now, the main motivator for why she continues to get up and fight the good fight. In other words, her reason to live. So naturally, Dave Filoni took whatever meaning there was behind that message and heartlessly repackaged it to pass it off as if it was something Ahsoka needed to learn. Again. The driving force for the show is the moral dilemma between destroying the map and risk losing Ezra, or keeping the map and risk letting Thrawn go, starting a galaxial war. If you're not clinically insane, you'll agree with the fact that this is not a dilemma at all. Because let's think about this. The good guys, that's Sabine and Ahsoka, are having issues deciding on whether to save their friend or save an entire galaxy. Remember that they don't confirm that Ezra is alive.
If Thrawn survived, does that mean Ezra?
I hope so. Nothing is certain, except our enemies' belief that they know where to look.
There should not be a discussion here. Destroy the map and Thrawn never gets found. Congratulations, you're heroes. If we were to take this further, Ahsoka should have gotten rid of the map the second she first found it in episode 1. With the destroyed map eliminating any chance for Thrawn to return, it falls in line with the core message Ahsoka adopted as her own. There should not have been any contemplation at all when she knows that too many lives are at risk. It's jarring because this is an irresponsible and overall selfish way of thinking coming from a person who's learned so many times that there's more to life than themselves and their own world. What makes this worse is that the episode with Anakin tries to sell us that Ahsoka wants to stop fighting because she keeps getting people killed. She wants to be a pacifist instead of a soldier all of a sudden. So through Anakin, she's supposed to learn that lives need to be lost in order to fight for the greater good, and that she should choose to live because there are people out there who need her. Or at least that's what I can make of it. As there was no hinting at this conflict prior to this episode, it never gets brought up again from this episode on, and most of all, Ahsoka already knows that. Bin knew that. This is a deliberate assassination of her character, and to be frank, it was completely unnecessary. But fine, whatever. Now that she's learned her lesson, her next move should be on criticizing Sabine for betraying her and not destroying the map like she promised. Hopefully she can help Sabine come to the realization of the countless lives she's just put in danger, grilling her for how selfish her actions were, how careless she's been, denouncing her for her complete and utter disregard for needs outside her own. Maybe then Sabine can look back on her decisions, reflect, and take in the immense destruction that's approaching the galaxy. I consider her past redemption, but for the sake of the story, this could be her chance to make her way back into Ahsoka and the galaxy's good graces. A chance for her to step up and to become the hero she was revered as. With Sabine all ears and at Ahsoka's side, class is finally in session.
You must be pleased. More relieved than anything else.
Oh, so Sabine's a goddamn psychopath.
Your gamble paid off.
What?
So you know.
I do.
Never thought I'd see him again.
You might not have, had you chosen differently.
What?
Sorry.
You know.
You're not mad?
Over the years, I've made my share of difficult choices.
Wait, please. Please, God, don't tell me they're doing what I think they're doing.
Often no one understood my reasons, except my master. He always stood by me, even when no one else did. And that's why, no matter what happens next, I'm going to be there for you.
So, first off, Anakin did not always stand by your decisions, because some of your decisions in the past were mistakes that costed lives. He stood by you because you learned from them, and that's what made him a great friend and master. He helped you grow instead of leaving you out to drown trying to protect your feelings. Second, when he stood by you, and I know what you mean by stood by you, you're referring to the time you were framed, it was because the Senate and the Jedi Order were accusing you of making a decision that he in his heart knows you would never have made, which is why, against the Order's wishes, he got involved and caught the real culprit. That is not the equivalent of forgiving your student for putting an entire galaxy at the risk of intergalactic warfare all to save her best friend. This is a false equivalency of the highest order, and it does nothing but show that these people do not look at the occurrences that brought upon these previously established events before using them to create payoffs, which is the only logical explanation for why they'd even attempt to compare the Clone War molehill to the Ahsoka mountain. They got tunnel vision looking at the payoff from mentioning one of the most pivotal moments in Ahsoka's journey and never bothered to weigh the moral implications of these two moments. In order to get to this point, they had to walk back on every single event that shaped Ahsoka into the character that she is, only to rush back trying to retread the exact same path, hoping to tap into those memories of the good old days without any of the time or carefulness used to make Ahsoka the character we all knew and loved. There's nothing left, nothing to salvage, nothing to rebuild. Ahsoka's character is gone for good. The amount of final nails broke the coffin, leaving her to be cremated instead. All that's left is for her name to be endlessly scraped across the franchise, a member berry regrown and mass-produced to be distributed to the public, forever trying to poke the nostalgia out of fans to squeeze whatever pennies they can. I would ask if it was worth it, but the series, like many others, turned a huge loss for Disney+, so it was all for naught. The nostalgia didn't even work, but you don't care, do you? Of course not. You don't see Star Wars as a universe filled with stories that grew with generations, that inspired millions, that brought lessons, messages, and new perspectives on the world happening around us. No. Star Wars is merely a bag of backup assets to help plug the holes in your bank, bandages to cover up your wounds, but little do you know that those wounds were self-inflicted. Dave shot himself in the foot, no doubt, but the gun was fired twice. You've nobody to blame but yourself. And unfortunately, one of Star Wars' most beloved characters, your partial creation, had to be dragged down to the abyss with you. Thank you all for watching, may the Force be with you, and have a spectacular rest of your day.